Welcome, friends. What a blessing to be here with a new guest, a new member. I was always a member since before she came to this lifetime, for sure. So we'll start with our message from the book, The Way, the Truth, and the Life.
So, chapter 8 from The Way, the Truth, and the Light. Jesus came, but he emptied himself, taking the form of a servant, making himself similar to man. Paul and Phil 2:7. Many disciples talk about how terribly hard it is to go to do good with works in the service of evangelical fellowship. They complain about the unfortunate state of ignorance that most people seem to enjoy. However, complaints like this are unjustified. In carrying out his divine mission of love, Jesus did not depend on the immediate collaboration of perfected and wise spirits. Instead, he emptied himself, taking the form of a servant, making himself similar to man. We were not able to go up to the Savior to be with him in his sublime position. Instead, he came down to us, temporarily extinguishing our role of light in order to benefit us without displays of sensationalism. Jesus' example in this particular is a highly profound lesson. Let no one allege intellectual or sentimental accomplishments as a reason for their brothers and sisters misunderstanding them. None of those who have walked the earth ever reached the heights of Christ. On the other hand, we see him eating with sinners, talking fraternally to prostitutes, and giving his final example between two thieves. If your neighbor cannot reach your spiritual level, then you can go to his or hers for the good work of fraternity and enlightenment, without any ostentation that might be offensive. Remember the example of the divine master. In order to come to us, he emptied himself, entering the world as a child with no cradle and exiting his glorious endeavor as a crucified servant.
See how the good spirits are working? We follow, just follow in order, and today this is the message that fell for us. We start with a short prayer to align our hearts and minds with Christ, the good spirits that join us here. Yeah, Jesus. Dear Mother, Father God, what a joy to be here with you today. What a blessing to have the presence of all the incarnates and discarnate friends who are here. We pray that our hearts be open to receive your message, to feel the loving presence of the Spirit mentors and guides with us, blessing us, dispensing the much needed medicine to heal our souls, to clarify our thoughts and enlighten our hearts for this lifetime. We thank you for this physical space that support us, and we hope that we can grow and continue to work on your behalf, bring into life the teachings that you have brought to us when you were incarnated. We pray for our loved ones, near and far, in both realms of life, who support us. And with your permission and protection, we begin our reflection today. And so be it. Friends, it's such a joy to be here because we will be talking about our spirit conduct towards Jesus. This is a book that is in Portuguese. Most of the chapters are in the Spiritist magazine. I participated on the translation of this book. It has 47 chapters. And the last one is Spiritist conduct towards Jesus. I translate towards Jesus, perante Jesus. So it's just a reminder. I'll give you the message when I get there. When a reflection on these times of Christmas, where we conventionally celebrate the birth of Christ. thinking about his friends who came around him in both realms to support his mission, who is the governor of our planet, co-creator in greater plane. We are co-creator on the smaller plane yet, one day. So he lovingly created the earth 4.5 billion years ago. He's lovingly waiting for us to rise up. Yet he comes down regularly to commune with us, just as he did when he was incarnated. In the book Workers of Life Eternity, you see that in chapter 4 or 5, where the Spirit is saying he was so busy as we are looking up, and we're like, how can I be better? How can I climb? How can I climb to get to the spheres, the highest spheres within the earth? And there's a commotion in the spiritual realm, and he says, what is that? There's some angelic beings coming. And he describes it that Jesus comes to the lower zones, which are just right next to us, to console the hearts of those who suffer, as much as does Mary and her legions of workers that helps the folks who are unable, perhaps some of us in previous lifetime, to remain in this life and took their lives through suicide. So the lovingly vibrations of her love, birthing the Christ, of course she was also from a higher sphere, right, to be able to receive him. The disciples that were just like you and I, working to reach the Master, to understand his words. So as we think about this, a reflection, the importance of Christ, more than just buying gifts, as I was unsuccessful attempting to decorate the place for us before we came here. We're wrestling with the wreath that ended up adorning our podium. Where we go from just the gift giving and more about the gathering and being together, nothing about the gifts in the physical realm, of course. So the first question we ask is, who is Jesus for us? You saw me ask this last time before we talked about the wisdom and the knowledge, right? Evelyn brought to you last week was the 2 wings that we need to ascend. First, we need to know, and then through experience, we got you want to talk about Jesus? You raising your hand? Who is Jesus for you? I was like,
You want to ask a question?
you want to ask
Or
it?
you want to answer who's Jesus?
Oh, it's okay. Do you know Jesus? Look, Jesus is with you right there. The doll Jesus, of course, for those who don't see her. Oh, poor thing. Put her on the spot. You can ask questions. Pode falar. No, she's like, no, I'm going back to my drawing here. But it's good. See, they feel the love that comes from the spirit to have also, the works of the children in the spiritual realm, because there's children in the spiritual realm. But for us, who is Jesus for me in my heart? Do I feel, not only knowing what's in the gospel, just literal what he did, but do I ask for help? Do I consider how am I using the words that Jesus said and did? So we always want to remind folks that in the books, Good News, only 2 come to mind now, Jesus in the Home, both New Lucio, Humberto dos Campos and New Lucio, respectively, bring to us what it was to be around him, how people missed him after he was gone, because some were able to recognize in him the vibrations of love. He was coming from the higher realms, emanating the divine resources, as we see in this Genesis, right? That's how the healings occur, manipulating the spiritual fluids that you and I are still learning and comprehending. And then after he was gone, people were missing him because he was there with them. It was a service, a ministry of doing things, helping people. It wasn't what we sometimes do, which is preach and talk about Jesus, but then our actions are still a little misaligned because it's hard to be like him all the time. But we want to aim that balance, right? We're a little bit more like him, but less like him most of the time, most days. So we're aiming for what we can do in this realm, and then we are blessed with the experience of Waldo. This is from Waldo Vieira, but from Chico Xavier and others who exemplify a little bit what it is to have difficulties, have difficult lives. We're so privileged to be here. So, I'm privileged to be here talking to you and being able to count on your support, not only to be here and help, but also, the donations we're going to make to the Safe Harbor shelter with food, helping others in this season. So for me, I'll start, says he would be, I'm hoping that he can be my friend, my counselor, because that's how he's portrayed in a lot of he was able to stop talking and listen to people and ask the right questions. And it's, and how we experience this Christ-like being is individual because we are all in different journeys. So your experience with Jesus in times of happiness or sadness or difficulty, sometimes we only remember Jesus when we are suffering, when something is hard, which is fine. But then if we, in the good times, we can rejoice and make that muscle. And he's like hovering over beautiful Manuela's table, blessing all the drawings she's making, right? As we learn to see it through the eyes of a child, right? We can open our hearts again, remove the preconceptions we had from other lives, from this life. And because when you exercise the muscle of feeling Jesus as your friend, then we can move on. Anybody want to share what Jesus is for you? Because we've done this exercise before, so maybe there's been time for reflection.
Yeah, the Spirit's book says that Jesus is the best example for us to follow. So if it is to say for me, among all so many attributes of Jesus, I would say the unselfishness, the sacrifice that he did for others. For me, I think is what calls to me follow.
And he did it inside a human body while he was having the daily challenges we have incarnated on earth.
And he also did it as an example to those who came with him. The 12 we know, the ones we don't, right? The ones who followed him. And through the books, such as Paul and Stephen, we see how much the apostles also are like us. You see yourself in the, we're like rigid, like James. We are leaders like Peter, but we deny the master at times. And being so unselfish is hard. Immersed in a physical realm that is about selfishness at times. A lot of it is about me, mine. And so, yes,
Just a second. Mama said that Jesus is love.
Oh, that is beautiful. Do you feel loved by Jesus? That's good. Jesus is the ultimate love that comes from God. One of those Spiritist magazine, February 1868, talks about he's the highest level of the Christ spirit. So once you get to superior spirits, it's not even on the Spirit's book, question 100. It's a below, and then you get your badge and say internship down to superior spirit. So you have to be so much elevated to create a planet and care for the planet, its evolution. So we're evolving physically, but we're also evolving spiritually through our work for the planet. So we want to envision this love that Manuela reminded us of everywhere we go. Because we don't ask for much when we come here. As a Spiritist group, we don't ask for things. But we ask that you give what you have. We talked about this on the book. Jesus in our days. Jesus isn't, in that book, Joanna says, Jesus didn't ask us to be anything else but what we have. So we take account of what I can offer, and then, you can be here thinking about the spirits that are working around you, because sometimes we come here just for our own healing. And then now as a new cycle begins, we're able to have this beautiful space to be, we ask, to turn the tables and say, now how can I serve the spirits that are here, that come overnight, that are receiving help? Because as much as we have what we have and we're blessed, there's people who are suffering. There's many ones discarnating all the time. And that's a place like this can be of respite to them, hopefully one day to us. We can come here and talk through the mediums and tell them how important this work was. Yeah, in the book, the Spirit's book, it says who was the most perfect type that God offered to human beings, like I don't know. This is from the Kardecpedia, another beautiful resource. So this book, I'm going to give you the message. I only have a few of them on the screen so we can all discuss at times. Or we can have the masculinity at home. As I said, the Spiritist magazine does have the articles. Okay, let me say some more still here. I used to know how beautiful the spelling in the when we can spell our names. So in this book, we have Spiritist conduct for everything. So from the young, the old, the women, medium in the home, and while traveling, while working in society, all kinds of at the Spiritist Center, before our parents, before children, before sick. So it's like a huge, I hope that one day when it comes, we can think about this book as much as we think about Foreign Life, where we recommend that people who are endeavoring new relationships in motherhood, fatherhood, read it before the birth, because they say these are preparations for life. So I put in here his this is from the Spirit under Luiz. It says, all circumstances recognize ourselves in the invisible presence of Jesus, who support us in the works of the eternal God. So much is, at least for me, is conceptual. How can a being so elevated be everywhere? Because that's where God is. God is everywhere. So he's lovingly caring for each and every one of us, the 8 billion incarnate and the many more discarnate that are with us in the lower vibrational levels of the earth, all the way to the highest spheres. Because we think of Solar as a benchmark, right? We have healthcare, we have no homelessness, people have a place to live, they work, they prepare to reincarnate, just a stopping spot. But there are many, many more non-material colonies around that go where the spirits there are dreaming about being in Jupiter and all these planets. So there's so much around the Earth that, as being incarnate, it may not be a sense of meanings we don't perceive or see. So do we really feel in this invisible presence of Jesus? And there are the implications of it, right? If we feel in the presence of Jesus, perhaps some of the things we say, think, or do wouldn't occur. Because we may feel ashamed. Remember, some of the apostles come to him and like, oh my God. And so I think it might be Bartholomew. Bartholomew was the sad one. But there's other instances in the book, New Lucy, that he says, God, I'm not cut up for this. I don't like this person. I cursed the other one. I did this. And, feeling in this, not physical presence, but also everlasting, a loving, patient, fatherly, motherly-like presence. Do you guys resonate with this idea? Especially between now and Christmas, we're going to be with families, and we know the family members are pushing our buttons because we come together with commitments. We were together in other lives. We erred together. We did things together. So now we are like recognizing each other and pushing. It's like that coach, that says you don't want to lift anymore, but they make you do one more rep because they know next time you'll be stronger. That's a relationship. It can be difficult. It says in these smallest commitments, identify the superior will, promoting everywhere security and happiness of all creatures. Each human heart is a piece of potential light, and I'm sorry, they're dispelling. Jesus is a sublime artisan. So everywhere that we feel lovingly connected with Jesus, we can bring, we're talking about giving. What can I give? This sense of security and happiness when I come to someone and make their day better than worse. When I say a loving prayer for them, when I see someone struggling, or when I say hi to them when I see the downcast, or when I cleanse my home, my environment, and I joyfully see my colleagues as also children of God when they're annoying me. when that meeting could be an email and you're like thinking about what am I doing here? You could like lovingly pray that the business, because one day in the earth, we're moving it. We see the social change where people are asking, what am I doing this for? We want to align what we do with the goodness of everybody, because just, sometimes we have to do things for paycheck purpose, to pay the bills. But we're starting to see the newer generations asking that question, because we're going through life doing things, wake up, have to clean, you have to do this, and take that, and then you don't have time even to breathe. And many of the incarnates are just not even asking the question, what am I here for? We're a little bit more, not better than anybody, but we're like, okay, now I'm questioning, what am I here for? Then I can apply. So each human heart is a potential piece of potential light. And Jesus is the artisan. Artisans sculpt things, right? They mold things. So in your heart, you have the potential for light. The hearts of the young ones will have potential for light. So that's of course, we have to start with ourselves, because if we don't have to give, it's hard. But when we feel downcast, or when or things are difficult, we can feel Jesus sculpting us to be better. Not in a pushy manner, not like a drill sergeant type of stuff, but he's like, okay, you can do it. And we can spread that to our loved ones. Even for the ones in nature, we can work with nature in a sense that we know those potential. The spiritual principle in nature will become, the spiritual principle and ultimately the spirit one day, so we can lovingly educate ourselves and work with others within whatever you are, because we came in a specific family, specific country, moved, we chose to be here. So now God is allowing us to have that action here too. Just remember that the Lord works for us without rest, unearned rest, desertion of duty. That's very easy to fall into these days, because nobody's posting when they go to the store to buy food, to donate, when they drive to a place to drop it off, maybe somewhere. But the majority of us are posting about the beautiful things we're able to do, the vacations we take, the stuff we have. And again, we are in the material world, so we have to use the things in the material world to make our lives and the lives of others better. But sometimes we rest a lot without having served. And sometimes the service is not getting out of our house. Sometimes the service is loving myself more, accepting my shortcomings, accepting that my loved one is different than I am, or, that I have that family nuclear I have to work on. Sometimes, we think about service, missions, like someone like Waldo, that has to have a specific caliber of spiritual development to be able to. 3,000 children every day they serve, for the school, for the meals. It takes also teamwork. Because, I was here trying to decorate, and I said, why didn't I ask people? People will be happy to help me some ideas on how to put up a tree or something. And sometimes we just go through, and you used to, we see ourselves independently. Also teamwork. And Jesus has, in the way to the light, Emmanuel explains to us that, Jesus is still working now. And in the André Luiz books, I'll feel notches down, because André Luiz is saying when they are helping, they forget about themselves. They learn from the experience of others. They feel nourished without even need to consume the food that they have in the spiritual realm. And Jesus, Emmanuel in the book On the Way to the Light, explains that Jesus is, with a council of divine beings, acting upon the earth so that the will of God can be done. None of them are forcing us, but there are certain events in our lives that push us. There are certain things that we see, disasters, hurricanes, where it's forcing us to reevaluate and go help, go do. But it's all about He's working, God is working, He's creating. We only see a sliver of what's there. Sometimes I look at the NASA website, paid by you and I, by the way, should take up those resources. The James Webb telescope is showing us much more than the Hubble. Nobody talks about the poor Hubble telescope. But all the kinds of things that are out there, That's visible light, X-ray, things that you and I, science of this time, can create, right? See, detect. But we know that dark energy, dark matter is 96% of the universe. So think about the amount of creation, the amount of goodness, because in order to direct that creation, that development, you have to be good. And that's what God is doing. So now we're asking to, in our daily lives, the way we can, to work a little bit more and transcend, ourselves a little bit. Everybody doing good so far? Oh, yeah. So it says, you never interpret the eternal friend as a vulgar earthly revolutionary. Let's recognize him as the light of the world. So people who don't know what we do, who don't have access to Paul and Stephen, are going to talk about the biblical circles. It's good to know what they're talking, how they got the sources, where the archaeological things are, what the PQ fragments are, We're talking about the fragments of the Bible that were found in different parts of the world for excavation. So they get discussed who came first, who did what. And we have this beautiful teachings that shows us the rights of Levi, where the apostles used, Stephen used, Paul had access, and then comes Mark, and then Paul's letters, and then Luke, and later John later. So here we have much more information about the caliber of the Spirit. We only know about 3 years of his public mission. And in the book Good News, we have Mary's story. In the book of the Gospel of Luke, we have Mary's perspective of the situation. What was preserved, what people used, and the constraints that today I can print a bunch of stuff, I can hand out stuff. Before they were like getting the trees and the skin of the animals, someone needs to know how to write. And there's like 20,000 plus fragments of the New Testament that have been found. So there's no, of course, he revolutionized our lives, but he wasn't a revolutionary. That's not coherent with being the model and guide. Otherwise, we would be fighting over things, and we still have the competitiveness within us. It's clear, and even in the gospel, that he letting the culture of the time, the political things of the time be, and he was just, okay, let me do my work. And that's how sometimes we feel in our lives. We want to correct things, do things, and we forget, what am I here to do? And this is I don't know why it's in italic, but it's a kind of italic. It says, refrain from Christmas commemorations that are an extravagant nature, preferring the joy of fraternal help to the less happy brothers and sisters. Christ's true friends revere him in spirit. That, I'm not saying that we shouldn't get together and have friends, as we're going to have lunch today and have a beautiful musical moment for healing as our final prayer today. But André Luiz is reminding us, sometimes we're so afraid, we have guilt, we have shame, we can't live with ourselves because we are unable to find the resources, we are in suffering, and then we jump into the physical, the parties, the gifting, the traveling, the doing. So he's saying, as the business of society pushes on, everybody's schedule, doing, we want to be simpler, more humble, and maybe some of those resources can be put somewhere else where others can enjoy. How many people, as a documentary, we should know about those things on VPN, which is on public radio station. We did a documentary about a woman who is delivering food to the homeless, which is something not easy to do because there are restrictions and you can hand stuff to people, that's fine, but she has 30-some families that lives in hotels around here. So she drives all around town. Every Thursday she delivers food to people. How many of those are going to go to shelters, to churches, because they don't have the resources to have the Christmas celebrations that we have, that usually are full of extras that we may not need. But it's still joyful, right? We can still be joyful. We can still teach, have less waste, and have a joy of being together more than, especially because for us it's so hard. What am I going to give you guys? You have everything. I'm sure you want something, but we have everything we need. We are probably the 1%ers, the 2%ers, Other places on the earth, The $25 could go to feed someone for Fraternity Without Borders, the casual red Sundays, but it's trying to find that balance, right? You want to be with others, you want to enjoy, and then what's too much. And last but not least, he says, in all circumstances, electing Lord Jesus, the unchanging master of each day. We are the flock. Jesus is the divine pastor. So the pastor goes and guides the flock. The pastor also runs and finds the one who is astray, leaves the 99 to go to the one that left astray. So how can we think and feel as I'm allowing myself to be led by Jesus, by knowing who he was? He did incarnate in the body of a man, so the pronoun might be he. Who he was, what he did. So that's the two wings again, right? We talked about Jesus in our day, Jesus in love, and love being the glue, as she said, Jesus. She was not here for that talk, but she knows Jesus is love. And that's what we'll discuss. Remember, love being the glue that keeps all the worlds together, keeps everything that we need. Love has God at its center. So the center of everything is God emanating this love. And Jesus as a superior spirit next to God is giving us this love everywhere. So I hope that you can feel inspired to be led by him as much as I'm telling you this. Remember, every speaker you see, for the beautiful words they say, we listen to our words before you do. My ear is closer to my mouth and my words than yours. Even says. So we're always bringing this as just parents. We're like repeating the words of Luiz and Emmanuel and trying a little bit to apply in our later lives by caring for each and every one of you. So in this Christmas, I'm blessed to have this opportunity to be here. And the Bible quote is, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, working for the Lord, not for the human masters. And that's Paul in the letter to the Colossians. It's about, what am I doing? Who am I doing for? Am I serving God? Am I saving them? And forgive yourself. Make a mistake. Start again. Move on. Because it's, as I said, we want that slope. The slope is not important. It's not like up. It can be. We can accelerate. In each lifetime, Paul in 30 years had that slope, right? But he had the resources to recognize, and he went and he suffered many things that you and I hope we don't have to go through. But our slope can be a little bit less inclined, but it's just that progress. I'm better today than I was yesterday, better than I was 10 years ago. And so can we. Remember the heart being, as I said here. It says every human heart is a piece of potential light. So when we are struggling, when we're trying to figure out what to do, we envision Jesus guiding us, sculpting our hearts so it can be open and more ready to receive the teachings, even if they're harder, if they bring us pain at times. So sometimes, as Luiz says in his book, there's 3 types of pain. Sometimes pain pushes you. Sometimes pain makes you go. Because sometimes we resist learning through love. So Jesus said, like, okay, now it's time for some pain to go so we can learn. I was listening to a talk from Sueli Calder Schubert. Sueli Calder Schubert she's discarnated now, but she's a scholar in Spiritism. She has a bunch of books on mediumship, this obsession. She has a book called Spiritual Dimensions of the Spiritist Center, which I have, if ever any of you want to read. As one day we'll have a library, you can be able to borrow it. She was saying, in this way of being, dealing with others, how the Spiritist Center is, and how we're working each and every day. She's a medium. She has a medium, and she was talking about how through the mediumship is a service, because you have to work on yourself to be able to feel the empathy and love for others, and you learn through the experience of those who come through you. without having to make their mistake. But she said and she was here. A long time, I think 2006, 7. She came to Maryland, and she was describing this talk in the university. A lot of us have those, they went to spaces. And she was talking about how some physicians came, some other PhD people came, and she was being translated live. And she used the expression that the pain is the true cure for the soul. I'm paraphrasing badly, but she says, because we want to avoid pain. But the pain is really when we realign those points in our spiritual body that were more predisposed to disease. And through the pain, you can expiate that and realign those vibratory patterns so that even if you're not cured or healed from the disease, the next life you've accomplished, you've learned through it. Because, nothing is predetermined. We have a plan, we have a reincarnatory plan, but we make decisions. And the spirits are like, oh my God, like pinball machine, like trying to steer us into the right pathway, allow us to go through. And sometimes things we did in the past, many lifetimes ago, now we're ready, we have the resources and the strength to go through. And that's how you work through not only yourself, but when you're ill, you have others caring for you as well. So it's always about the law of society and coming together. Are we feeling good? Do you have any comments about taking this as more in the chapter that I didn't bring, where you can take it home? You can borrow the book at some point if you want. Feeling that Jesus is love, as Manuel brought to us. And now in the true spirit of service, we will have a moment of music. Okay? So we will use the music as our dear Hosea, for those who want to sing, will sing and play for us. And we'll use that, feel the loving vibrations of the mentors and guides, using his talent to help us in this time.
You have the lyrics?
I do.
Ah.
For the people?
Oh, here.
Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Well, I have the lyrics too.
Yes, it would be helpful if you accompany me because my song is ready today. It's a beautiful song. It's Oh Holy Night. And the lyrics are so beautiful.
I'll put it on the screen. I was going to bring it.
Oh, no, it's okay. Thank you.
Oh, I have to put it on the screen, don't I? 1 second. A little technical difficulties. Whenever you're ready, we'll join, maybe join.
Sorry, I just forgot how it starts.
No, the tension's building. This is good.
Sorry, I'm struggling here. I practiced this yesterday for the first time. Oh, holy night, the stars are brightly shining. It is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Oh, may the world in sin and error pining till he appeared and the soul felt its worth. The thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices, for yonder breaks a new glorious morn. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angel voices, oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born. Oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born. James child he prayed, for the slave is our brother, and in his name all oppression shall cease. Sweet hymns of joy in grateful chorus raise we, let all within us praise his holy name. Christ is the Lord. Let ever praise thee, no end, no end. Oh, night, oh, night divine, no end, no end. Oh, night divine, no end, no end. Oh, night divine.
Fabulous.
All right. Turn on the light. Thank you so much, Jose. What a blessing to have this talent. Beautiful song. Oh, and folks are looking at the ceiling right now. I'm recording so I can post later. For people to enjoy because we have to share the good news, right? Cool.